All right, time to talk about some cycles. Let's get into it.
Put some respect on my name. You understand me? When y'all saying my name, put some respect on
Okay, so today I do have a clip again. It just came to me while I was watching a video. Video is in the descriptions. Matthew Cox, and again, it's one of those things where I was planning on doing this video, and while I was observing his video, he had a situation that pretty much related to the topic of today. So let me get the mood started first of all. But we are going to be talking about reasons. So of course you will hear in the background, and yes, I'll probably most likely get a copyright strike of some sort. But one of my favorite songs, of course, by Earth, Wind, and Fire. If you haven't noticed the thumbnail, but that will be going on in the background. Now, I've noticed that, of course, we're going to be talking about uh, relationships and dating, if that's what you want to call it. If you look in the description, I did give a fairly decent description of what I meant when I said dating. Um, Referring to dating, I said dating is really just a mix of social, i.e., sexual contracts, chivalry, and power dynamics. War strategy, which is true. That's where that whole saying, all is fair in love and war, that was actually abbreviated from a novel, I believe, by John Lyly. I think his name is Lyly, something like that. I doubt it's Lyly, but I don't know. It could be. Anyway, let's continue. That saying is, I could say, infamous, but it's very well known. All is fair in love and war. It kind of portrays on that Machiavellianism, by any means necessary. By any means necessary. If I gotta manipulate, if I gotta do whatever I gotta do, there's an end and there's a means. And by what? By any means necessary. So I am going to refer to the dating cycles, and because of today's society and the way things are going, for guys, it's actually the same. Like nothing has really changed other than the difficulty in acquiring resources. Our fathers had it significantly easier. Additionally, it was how can I say, harder to pinpoint your locations, and so yeah, back in the day, yeah, Papa Was a Rolling Stone is a popular song as well. The women, if you wanted to do that whole slut whole culture, um, the whole Maury Povich show, yeah, they literally couldn't find the daddies. I mean, they could know who the daddy is, but back in the day, literally, if that nigga skipped town, you couldn't find him. The system wasn't set up that way. Nowadays, it's a felony. You will get hit with a felony if you don't financially support your child as a man. Of course, that's specifically for the men. The women, on the other hand, I mean, it's whatever. Kill the babies. So as we continue on, for the men, it's pretty much been the same. So I'm going to actually start this uh, in respect to the women. Hey, ladies, how you doing? Now, of course, society allows y'all to absolutely use the children for whatever puppets or uses you need. Gotta support that Machiavellianism. But aside from that, aside from stroking your egos, aside from allowing your vanity to evolve into narcissism, we're going to talk about the cycle that all of you fall into, and it's ridiculous because it's like you see it. It's like every single mom today knew a single mom. Like that's true today. Now back in the day, okay, yeah, they was doing that rah rah hoorah back in the '60s and before, whatever. But then again, they did see a few. Now it was less common back then, a lot less common. It's actually like I think it was like 20%. Now it's like 80%. So it's like 3 times more common today, 4 times more common today. Sorry, math skills. There we go. 4 times more common today. All right. Well, actually, it is 3 times, but I think it's close to 4. It's kind of moving that way. So technically, I was right the first time. So it is 3 times more common today, 60%, versus the roughly 20%, and now it's still high even then, back in the '60s. But even prior to that, so the ladies knew it was essentially a death warrant if you became a bastard baby maker. Even then. Now, of course, there was the whole system there to support it and promote it, thanks to the dominant society absolutely wanting to rip apart and destroy the black household. And they realized, hey, we can tear the women from the men, et cetera, et cetera. So they promote that feminist bullshit. And I'm all for fairness, equality in a sense of you have the right to work for what you get. I'm all for that. I'm not for rigging. I'm not for cheating. And, all the darker stuff that comes with that, because sometimes people say equality, they don't really mean equality. But in this sense, I'm talking about you have the right of choice. You have the options. It's free choice. You can do what you please. But it went to an extreme. And of course, when you give someone power, often it's not power unless they can abuse it, and it has been allowed to be abused. And the rights are heavily in favor of women, especially when it comes to marriage, family court, and the children, at least rights to the children, as well as some social, how can I say, social norms in a way. So let's get into the cycle. Now, I'm going to kind of breeze through what's the current cycle for the ladies. The young and hot ones, they're always young and hot. The crazy thing is they're looking at their moms and grandmothers that I guess the prior generation, the ones born after the '60s, like the ones who went through the '80s and the '90s and the Freaknik chicks. Yeah, those chicks. Now they were probably the first, if not second generation of women where it was pretty much 50-50 with the bastard baby making. So they were able to witness firsthand the results of doing that and not getting a man and not prioritizing that and being a respectful woman and promoting whole culture. So that generation was actually the first where that was actually they actually made it the norm, but they saw it way more common than the prior ladies, our grandmothers. So the women today are seeing the generational women, like you look at the top in the pink, the older women, they're chronically single, often a bunch of plants and animals and creatures around them, if not around a bunch of other women. Mentally, you can tell that they're not all there, but we all know today that they absolutely lie to the younger chicks to continue to promote that bullshit that, yeah, you should do what we did, and yeah, you got the rights and freedom, and get out there, hot girl summer it, right? So the crazy thing is their lives are an example of what happens when you do that type of lifestyle. But because they're promoting this stuff, or they're actually giving I talked about this earlier, where people will rationalize their choices. So their rationality is actually, that's where the whole, especially in the Black community, the deadbeat father narrative. So pretty much all the blame was shifted onto the males for the behaviors of the females, because as we know today, the majority of Black men do not have children. The majority of Black females do have children. So that, and even today, people still try to promote it as if the problem with the society and with our community is the men making all these babies. And it's like, if you look at the statistics, it literally shows that the men aren't making these babies. And when we do make these babies, we are overwhelmingly married to the women we make them with, which, of course, if you know anything about the marriage rate in the Black community, it's very few. And people, for some reason, don't want to acknowledge that you do realize that other men, they have mixed babies with Black women, like white guys, Asian guys, Hispanic guys. Yeah, so they don't factor all that in either. Yes, they tend to go after the guys they can easily manipulate, the Pookie types. But just realize it's the Pookies of all races, not just the Black men. So that's why people don't really, I don't know, they just don't understand how that works. You can't prevent a woman from laying down with whoever she wants to, and you can't prevent her from getting pregnant. You can't. She can literally go out there and your daughter can go out there and get knocked up. What are you going to do to stop it? You're going to take time off work to constantly 24/7 follow her around? You see what I'm saying? Like, no, like, that's why morals and, to be honest, shaming is very important, because she should feel a sense of shame. That's actually a big part of it, when you build morals within a community, within your family. You let her know she represents the family, she represents you, and she should not want to disappoint you and the family. But if she don't give a damn, ain't shit you can do from stopping her to go get knocked up. I'm just saying. Not a damn thing. I mean, nowadays it's a little different. You got more women in their mid-30s getting pregnant, faster baby makers. Back in the day, it was actually the teens. So you remember how I said that generation of women, they were promoted to the younger chicks? Yeah, they were promoted to them in their teens. And I'm not talking about 18, I'm talking about 14, 15, 16. Yeah, it was the ladies promoting them. Now, today, the ladies look at those women, the young ones in the blue. They're looking at the ones in the pink. They're seeing how they got there. Of course, they're believing the narrative of, oh, it was some guy that screwed me over. That's why I am where I am. But I'm still winning. And of course, lying, absolutely lying. The house and the car is all just a bunch of debt. Of course, it's easy to get a house and a car, but you got to pay that bitch off. You know how many foreclosures and repossessions? I mean, it's repo season. The last 2 years, its repos have been on the rise. And they just finally started back the foreclosures within the last year or so. So yeah, that's been bumping too. But pretty much the younger ladies looking at the older ladies, and they actually see them for what they are to an extent, and they're like, yeah, I won't turn out like that. That's not going to be me. I'm different. And that brings me to the first thing with this, and that is, of course, these phrases come from the narcissistic nature of women. There are comparable phrases to the guys, but it irks me when you hear all women, and here are some of the things I always hear. They all acknowledge that they are not like all the others. All women. And it's crazy. Like, all women will tell you, oh, I'm not like other women. Now, the crazy thing is that's more common today. And if you're a smart guy, what you will understand that means is women understand the craziness of the women today when it comes to relationships and marriage and commitment. That's literally the only reason they would say that and acknowledge that. And that's their way of kind of slickly acknowledging that the women today are openly sexually promiscuous. The young ones, of course, aren't looking to commit at all, unless you're a guy with money. And even then, good luck with that, because she divorces you, she running with the bag, and then she's going to assume she can get another one and just rinse and repeat. More on that later. But what I was saying earlier is all women will acknowledge that they are not like the others. And there's somebody out there, of course, she's going to be a lady. She's going to be like, And then, of course, she's also going to talk about how, like, oh, well, men are the cheaters. Actually, men are the cheaters, even though statistics show that women cheat more than men. But, however, she's going to still uphold that. And then I'm just going to ask one question. Okay, well, if that's the case, then why would ladies say that then? If all women are just so great and wonderful, then why would all women say that they're not like the others? Because that would actually be the problem. Because if we're not going to acknowledge how women are as a group today, and how all women say that they're not like other women, then what's the bad thing about being like other women? See, there we go. Now I got you in the loop. So I want you to think about that. And while you're stuck in that thought, I'm going to continue. Now, the yellow phase, that's, hot girl summer it up. Now, of course, the blue phase is the young ladies encroaching and right at around, 18. And then, of course, the yellow phase is them growing through their 20s, pretty much. As a matter of fact, here we go. The blue, you got the youth. Life is fun. Plenty of time. Time is on your side. I mean, you're only like 14, 15, 16. You're already, if you're one of the early bloomers, yes, there are ladies. I've seen pictures. They've shown pictures, like, ladies I've talked to and whatnot. Quite a few, actually. I don't know what the hell they're feeding kids nowadays, because I still see some girls nowadays. I'm like, okay, she's in high school, but she looks like a damn 27-year-old. Physically. Talking about hair, lips, all that. Now, of course, we see ladies today. Not too different for you to see a woman. And I remember there's some girls where they would have some pictures. Y'all always have pictures on your social media. And you see some of the older pictures. You're like, oh, when was that picture taken? Because it's like, it's her, and you see her in some place or some, I don't know, traveling or something, usually like family photos. It was like, oh, that's when I was back in so-and-so. And I was like, wait a second, how old were you in this picture? And usually that's when she said, like, oh, I was like, 13, 14, 15, whatever, years old. And she literally looks the same, meaning currently, as you're talking to her, she's in her 20s, but she looks exactly the same as she did when she was 14, 15 years old. Physically, that is. And that's because she had physically developed. So the moment a woman physically develops, she's already attracting attention from men because she is physically developed. And of course, there's going to be people like, oh, pedophiles. And I'm like, unless she tells you she's underage, you won't know it, because I literally just said she's literally looks the exact same as she did at 14, 15 as she does at 24, 25. There are guys like that. I am one of them. I was 17 when I got to college. People thought I was fucking 23, 24. There was a guy, I think I talked about this guy the other day. He was in high school, 14, 15. If you didn't know it, you'd think this motherfucker was a 27-year-old. I shit you not. Physically developed. I mean, built like Dwayne The Rock fucking Johnson. Dude was ripped. I'm not even gonna lie. And yes, the teachers were looking, but of course, he was freaking 16 or whatever. But he looked like a damn grown-ass man. Not even gonna lie. Deep voice and everything. Chiseled, the fucking square jaw, all that shit. I think he started having some facial hair coming in. Dude was... Look, I'm just you have to acknowledge that. And ladies, you've seen some guys like that. You've seen them. Of course, nowadays, actually, a lot of them are, quite a few of them are tall. That's why I'm like, what the hell? Of course, the average height's going up, but I'm like, what the fuck are they putting in the food? Because now it's not too uncommon to see a dude. He's like over 6 foot. He's fucking 14. I'm like, what the fuck are they putting in your food? Oh, I don't know, man. I was like, wait a second. Hold on. You're from America. You're 14. Yeah, I'm 14. Nigga wearing a size 12. I'm like, what the fuck? So yes, it goes for the guys too. If in case you didn't know, but you already knew that, you're just being a bitch. So yes, physically developed, young, hot, plenty of time. Okay, we get that. That's actually when usually women physically develop. Uh, they mentally have to get there because they are getting sexual attention. So by the time she's 18, by the time she reaches her 20s, uh, the average female has had much more sexual, how can I say it, experience than the average 20-year-old male. Because as men, unless you're one of those early bloomers as a guy, which is like I said, rare, because as a young guy, you can only go based off your physical, and we know that women aren't just attracted to the physical of the guys. Where we are supposed to be the leaders, the protectors, the providers. You're supposed to be more learned. You aren't that at 16. Period. You have no life experience. You more than likely have no resources unless you're one of those rare guys that somehow got a record deal or something. But no, you're not that. That's not the norm at all. So the vast majority of guys, unless you're one of the jock types, where like I said, it's going heavily off of just the physical cues and stuff like that, and your swag, whatever, that tends to dwindle off, which I'll talk about that a little bit later, because there is a dark side of that. Much like the ladies, actually, that correlates very heavily with the ladies, because it goes into the cycle. Because once she gets in her 20s, you get more freedom because you're away from mom and dad. Now you can actually do what you want to do. Now you can actually have sex, free sexual access, simps galore, and there's that mindset of it branches off from entitlement because you're young and you're used to getting unearned benefits because you really didn't have to work for nothing. You're just young and you physically developed as a woman. And all you really had to learn was proper hygiene and how to dress it, which today, to be honest, it seems to be the trend is less is more. So you don't even really have to have style as a lady today. You just slap on some damn leggings or some Daisy Dukes and whatever top you want to go with it. Or you can just walk around in a damn thong, to be honest with you. I've seen that a couple times. So it's not until JB talks about that the wall after hitting the wall, and it's like y'all have the epiphany because when you're in your 20s, that's when the ones that are highest. Like you got a plethora of options. You will have more options than you will ever have in your entire life. Every dude is trying to lock you down, and today that means something different than what it used to mean. Locking you down used to mean he wanted to marry you. Well, today, for that higher tier of men, for the upper 20% of men, I would say, it's close to the upper 10%, to be honest, because they're the ones that really have the most to lose. They understand it's a risk to get married, period, at all, like just at all. To be honest, it is, especially to a hot little 20-year-old. You have no assets, you have nothing, you literally have nothing. So yes, he can get married to you. More than likely, he'll be 30, 35. He might have a couple 100,000, maybe $1 million in the bank. He gets married to you. Okay, cool. There's literally nothing stopping the badness from happening. You pop out some kids. You don't pop out some kids. It don't even matter. If he don't have a proper prenup put in place, even if he does, depending on the state, he still might be liable for alimony or some bullshit like that. So bulletproof prenup. I mean, he literally has to cover his P's and Q's, because if he doesn't, just off bat, let's minus the prenup. So I'm just saying, it's just straight up marriage. It's a no-go. It is. It's a no-go. Because all you have to do is just marry him and then divorce him after, like, what, 1 to 4 years? And bam, you just, like, this little 20-year-old didn't really have to do shit. And bam, she married this guy. the supporter lifestyle, because let's be real, at 20 you don't really have a career. You're probably just going through college, if that. And he's already established at 30, 35. So he's making the money. He's chosen to support you. And you divorce him after 2-3 years, guess what? You the state says you're entitled to half. So whatever he's got, you got half of it. So there's that. So that's why it's like, yeah, marriage is just pretty much a no-go. It's very disadvantageous for those guys, especially. Now, to the average guy, yeah, go ahead, marry him. He has very little to lose. So for him, his lock you down means marriage. To the more accomplished guys, what he will want to do, for example, what I would want to do is necessary. Now, like I said, until I'm certain. Now, mind you, if she's 20, 25, until I'm certain she acknowledges that she realizes what that marriage means, that absolutely means that alone is a sacrifice for me, and the burden until she recognizes the gravity of that. Meaning, if she just thinks, oh, we'll just get married, and if it doesn't work out, we'll just get divorced. No. That's not how this shit's gonna work out. No, it's you in it it's ride or die. Like, we get married, we in it. Fuck everybody else. It's me and you versus them. Ain't no if it don't work out. No, we'll make this shit work. It's that type deal. And there are consequences to certain decisions. But then again, that guy, when it comes to the guy spectrum, in a way, it's like if the ladies have the options when they're young and hot, with little to no assets, well, of course, because you're young and hot, they get the benefits, unearned benefits. Comes with entitlement, unfortunately. That comes with you have to understand, when you get unearned benefits, babying and that type of thing, that's what breeds that entitlement, that kind of spoiled brat type mentality. And it comes with the guys as well. It does. All of this does. Of course, like I said, I'm just talking about from the ladies' perspective, because that's the one that's changed the most and actually heavily influences this society for now, because women have been the majority for a while. So that entitlement is the same with the guys. The young jock type, 50 Cent famous song quote, "Damn, homie, in high school you was the man, homie. The fuck happened to you?" Usually the early bloomers for the guys are usually the inverse of the women. They turn out. It's like the reverse. So although they start the same, we win and we up when we're young, it drastically changes because now they value themselves solely off of their ability to get women versus their accomplishments and doing shit in the real world. And it's very rare that the young hot guys actually bloom into, the proper developed, accomplished men that I'm going to talk about in a bit. And it's the same for the older women. They are the inverse of the older accomplished men. Yes, she has the accomplishments in the older age like the man, but her value is drastically different. So the young, unaccomplished female, physically attractive, she's up. She's the high value. The young, unaccomplished male, physically attractive, he's temporarily up, but not high value, because the older women don't really want him like that. All women universally don't want him like that. Now, the young, attractive female, all men, if she got that act right, yeah, they trying to wipe that up with the quickness, no doubt. However, when she gets older, the guys ain't rushing to wipe that up at all. Period. I mean, she's older. You're talking about 35 plus. You're encroaching on 40. God forbid if you're encroaching on 50. Now the guys, 35, that's when guys hit their stride. Shout out JB. But guys take off when it comes to assets, accolades. Now, there are some, how can I say it, X factors. There are, now, the guys that are accomplished, now they could have been, as they developed as younger men, they could have been naturally physically attractive and still eventually developed into accomplished men. However, there could be some, I want to call them the late bloomers. And the accomplished men, in a way, you could say that they are by default the late bloomers because it takes time to develop into a man as a man. That takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not born like that. You have to be built. That's just a fact. I'll talk about that in Trials of Men. Whereas the unearned benefits, that's the early bloomer guys. Now they are similar to the late bloomer females, although in a way it still varies. So usually the early males are the least attractive, and the type of males that I was talking about before, they are the early bloomer males, and they are in a way the converse to the late bloomer females. Now these are the females where it took them some time to fully come to their womanhood for whatever reasons. Maybe they thought they were going to get out here in the workforce and, girl power it or something. Maybe it's just the females where it's just like, hey, they just wanted to easy go it, or they got by some guys. Some guys was hip to the game. Whatever it might be. But when I say the late bloomer females, I'm talking about the chicks where they claim that they were with one guy or whatever, and all of a sudden they have that, as I've referred to earlier, the growing demographic of single moms is actually in the 30s. So they have that growing, kind of like a midlife crisis. If you think about the chicks who weren't hot girl summering it up in their 20s, and then in a way they kind of have this reawakening when they start finding new styles and stuff. And mind you, they're like late 20s, early 30s. Now they got the ability to, now they've been working now, so now they got a little more money, so now they can travel abroad, and they become sort of serial daters. Eventually they'll want to settle down, but they become serial daters. And it's still true, the older the women, the less attractive they are as a mate. That's just what it is. So yeah, they can serial date. The guys will definitely date and have sex with them, but it's different for the younger 20-year-olds because the guys want to date and have sex with them. However, they know, like, hey, if she's willing, if she right, I'm trying to wipe that up. No doubt. Like any dude right here, like you tell them, hey, she's got the maturity of a 30-year-old, and she's 22, and she sees, and here's the key thing: she sees the danger in what the other women are doing. She sees that they're capped, they're lying, social media, all that bullshit. She's realistic. However, she's willing to, because mind you, it's hard telling somebody that they could see all these great things in the world and they'll never experience. Okay, how can I say it? She understands that she might not, depending on where she ranks, she might not get that guy that is capable of doing the regular trips to Dubai and all this extra extravagant stuff. But she's willing to do what it takes to get a guy that can do that if he's already there, or she's willing to, I don't want to say settle, but she's willing to sacrifice. She acknowledges, hey, I might not make it there. However, if it gets there, that'll make my life, that'll be a notch off the belt. But at the same time, we got lively goals. We got life. We got goals. We got our own accomplishments. She's building and learning with a man. Hey, enjoy your life by all means. Everybody isn't meant to live that type of lifestyle. Yes, everyone wants it and desires it, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice to get there. Now, this is hard because most women don't do that. They don't sacrifice their dreams. If they see it, they want it, and they're entitled to it. Remember the entitlement issue, because all women were young and hot at some point. It's just a fact. They got attention. It was unearned benefits. A young female goes out, she can get her food and drink paid for by some random guy trying to holler at her. I cannot recall if I've ever been out and about like that, and a woman bought me a drink. Like, maybe once or twice, actually twice. But that's not the norm. That's definitely not the norm. Not at all. Now, I'm going to show a clip. This was that clip I was talking about earlier. Matt Cox. I don't think his name's Matthew, but we'll just call him Matt Cox. Serial, how can I say it? I don't want to say entrepreneur, but more scammer. Former FBI most wanted. He actually, if you watch the video that I got in the description, Jesus, like the amount of privilege, my God. Like, if you ever want to like see what it means to have, like, well, one, he I'm not gonna lie, he was a fairly good scammer, but at the same time, there was a lot of white privilege there, because there were some times where it's like, okay, this dude should be caught right now, and he was able to talk his way out of it solely because he was able to get buddy with the agents and shit. So we already know that's not happening for any black guys. Just saying. You get caught, they ain't trying to get buddy with you. But pretty much he was talking about a lady he was dealing with. And remember the reasons. Reasons is what this broadcast is about. And what that pertains to is they are where they are for a reason. Meaning that lady, she's single for a reason. That guy, he's single for a reason. He's older with no assets for a reason. He's young with assets for a reason. Like, there are reasons as to something, as to why people make the choices they make. Also, why people make the choices around them. And he's particularly, Matthew Cox is talking specifically about one of his exes, or one of the females he was running around with when he was scamming, and how all the guys had this one thing in common, and that was they all left her. I'm talking about like just dropped her, like ghosted her. And he kind of explains, he's like, okay, I can kind of understand why. So this is kind of that thing where it's like, where I was talking earlier about how all women say that they're not like other women, and they all kind of say the same thing, women can have sexual partners like men and all that other craziness. But and there's actually some inverse quotes on that too. So I'm actually going to go over that after this clip, what the guys actually say. So here's Matt Cox talking about one of his exes.
That's the cycle with you, is that you date some guy and then he just takes off on you. And that's strange. But, after looking at it, it really wasn't that strange. Like, after dating her, I started realizing she put me in a fight or flight mode constantly during these fights. Like, she would get so erratic, and these arguments would get so, hyped up, where she was just screaming and hollering, and like, she'd get to the point where you think the cops are going to get called, or you think she's going to physically attack you. And all I wanted to do was leave. Like, I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to get into a physical confrontation with her. I just want to leave. And she was blaming me for everything. I mean, everything was my fault. I had ruined her life. And I'm like, you begged to come with me. You wanted to come with me. I told you what was happening. You knew what was happening. Like, you asked to come with me. Didn't matter. It was my fault. I hate you. And then 10 minutes later, it was, I love you so much. I never want to be without you. You're the most amazing person I've ever met. I'm so lucky to be with you. I mean, it was really insane. and just mentally, she was just so fucked up. Not that I'm the picture of mental health, but compared to her, I was.
So he's talking about his ex, and he was understanding. Okay, she would talk about, because when you're talking with someone you're dating with, you talk about your exes, and he was talking about how he noticed that pattern. And at first, of course, I'm pretty sure she probably framed it how guys are assholes, and actually, that's actually a very useful tactic. Because I know some women, y'all do that. All of your exes, all women's exes are assholes or abusive or toxic. That's another thing that the women say. All of their exes are abusive or toxic or something, or they're Lucifer incarnated, right? And what that's supposed to do is it's supposed to excite something in you as a man, because we do naturally, I talked about this in our Trials of Men, it's part of your biology. We naturally have this innate tendency to want to protect and provide, specifically for women and children. So when she's saying that, it's kind of like her, that's in a way, that's like her broadcasting that kind of damsel in distress signal. And to be honest, I don't know. Now, of course, there's reasons why she would want to lie about that, because she doesn't want to acknowledge all this wrong stuff she did. But I'm kind of wondering if women actually know that that's what they're doing, or if it just, if that's one of those things where it's like it's unintentional, but it works in a way, because in her mind, she's trying to demonize her ex to blame him for the relationship. But does she also know that that's also kind of exciting that kind of Captain Save-A-Ho, damsel in distress response in you towards her? Because you're seeing her, she could be physically attractive. It's pretty much your brain is like on go mode. You're like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get this. And you're pretty much, you probably, if you're like the average dude, you're starving. You are parched. So you're like, whatever I got to do, he did what? Oh my goodness, girl, I would never do that. So essentially that brings that part of you out, which is that you got to prove something, or you got to overdo something not to be that toxic asshole. Meaning, if she said that her last guy was controlling, right? And then say she comes home. Now, mind you, guys are supposed to be in a relationship. She comes home at 4 a.m, and you ask her where she's been. And then she's like, oh my God, you're so controlling, just like my last guy. And you're like, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. You see what I'm saying? So it kind of makes that dynamic happen, where it's like now you're trying to be overly generous because she's been through so much, or she claims to be. But in reality, it takes some time for you to deal with her. And then you start to see, just like Matt Cox saw, he's like, oh, I kind of see why they kind of just left your ass. You're fucking crazy. Now, she might have been cute and hot or whatever. I forgot what he gave the excuse for dealing with her was. But she was pretty much down for whatever, which, every dude loves a down-ass chick. But came with some craziness, and we already know crazy chicks usually good in bed. So probably some of that too. But he was like, yeah, I can kind of see why. Now that I've dealt with you for some time, I can see why those last guys just dumped your ass. And that's actually, I think eventually that's what most guys kind of catch on to after you've dealt with a number of women, after you dealt with your women. Then you understand, like, oh, that's probably why your ex was like that. Like, yeah, you said he was an asshole. Now you're calling me an asshole because I have to deal with you a certain way. And I'm like, oh, now I see why. Now I see why he did and said the things he said. Okay, I see why now. So that's why I was saying there's reasons to it. And in a way, it feeds into that cycle, that natural cycle. Now, mind you, the cycle is just based off of what naturally occurs. But of course, you have to factor in the psychology as well as their experiences in life, and then plug it into that cycle. And of course, the results will slightly vary, but the outcomes, when it comes to the single motherhood, when it comes to the older, accomplished. What do you call them? The old Macs. Those guys, the 40-year-old dudes in the club trying to get jiggy with it. Them guys, like there's that there's like a commonality in each of their stories, and it's like a never-ending cycle for them, for that specific type of person, because we all have different personalities, we all experience different things, but at the root of everything is, in a way, our desire to, one, get power, status, and whatever that encompasses for ourselves. Whether it be the money, the cars, the assets, whatever that may be. Peace, zen, whatever that may be, right? But it's us trying to achieve that. That's what that is. Now, talking about those phrases, the cycles. Now, the thing that you will hear to let you know, okay, this is one of those, right? Now, I talked about the ladies. What are some things you say? Oh, that's not me. I'm not like that. I'm different. I'm not like other women. I respect men. What is it? What else is it? I think I said some of the other ones earlier. Oh, my ex was an asshole. That whole demonizing the ex thing. I was too nice. That's kind of the that's kind of the converse that they use. If the ex wasn't just an asshole, they also say that they were too nice. That type deal. Now, there are also the ones that the guys tend to say. Now, mind you, the women, remember the cycle, they're usually young by default as a group, young and hot, plenty of options, unearned benefits, however, so there comes with entitlement, usually breeds, especially today, narcissism. They go through the hot girl summer phase, and then later in life, they are in Jesus save me mode. Oh shit, it's a mad dash. Where are the good guys at? That type deal, because the good guys are the guys that they want. And essentially those guys are like, yeah, nah. Because they aren't the prime choice. Because those good guys are inverse to where they used to be. Meaning the women are hot and high value in their 20s. The good guys that they're talking about are in their mid-30s and older, with assets, with resources, accomplished, status. So those good guys, although they might be in that same 30, 35 age range with that woman, he's looking at her and she's gone through this whole phase. Okay, you were hot and young. You passed him up when he was in his 20s, which y'all all do. And he's like, okay, now I'm 30, 35. I got my shit together. Now I'm the hot choice as a man. I'm the high value as a man for a woman. Now I got my plethora of options. And ironically, it kind of turns, it flips. The power dynamic shifts completely. So now he's got his plethora of options and his choice. And guess who doesn't want to get married like that anymore? He doesn't. Just like she was in her 20s. She ain't really want to get married like that because she's all these hot, older and younger guys. And she's like, oh, there's so many. Yeah. Same for him now. But the inverse to those things, I'm different and all that stuff. For the guys, unfortunately, because the cycle in a way is slightly different, meaning we start low and go high. The women start high and then go low. Yes, there are some social and psychological differences that develop because of that. But, guys, we got our sayings too. The older guys, he might be 35, but he might still be a sucker with the ladies. He didn't properly develop himself socially. So the same way, and this does really, like I said, it all makes sense. That's why I said there's reasons why these types of men and women are prevalent on the scene, in the market, out here. So just like the guys that say, oh, I've never been to jail, oh, I don't cheat, I make good money. And you know the guys that do that anime bullshit, like, oh, I can cut bamboo with my katana or some shit. That it's like, okay, she don't give a shit about your ability to do all that. Same way, the inverse to that, you know, you talking about doing cool guy shit. Same way, her saying she got a job. It's like you don't really care about that. If you're an accomplished guy, you got your own assets and stuff. You're looking for a wife or a chick to kick it with. It's like, I mean, you already know she ain't gonna really spend no real money on you, so you're like, all that job's really doing is just taking more time away from you. So it's like, okay, she got a job and she got a degree. It's like, okay, and well, she thinks the same way of you being able to cut bamboo with your katana. Yeah, it's cool to you. She don't give a shit. And even then, technically it's still not the same because really what she's trying to do is she's just trying to front. She's trying to raise the price. That's really what she's trying to do. And you're just trying to look cool. I guess you think that's going to raise your price. So actually, that's not a proper example, but it's an example that most guys can understand, especially if you're one of those katana cutting maniacs. You'll understand that. Now, I make good money. Now the guys, you know, JB talks about the productive sense. I actually think I talked about that in the video earlier when I was going against some of the shit that Kevin was saying. I'm referring to Kevin Samuels, and I was like, okay, he's talking about all this high value shit and whatnot. And I'm literally I've listened to women, the women on his program, women before and after, and I'm just like, no, all of them are essentially what they are all acknowledging is they want a guy with resources that's easy to manipulate, i.e., a productive beta. I think I did say that in an earlier broadcast too. I remember specifically because I was like, no, most, like, all women are that y'all all trying to get a productive simp who knows how to be alpha when he knows when you need him to be or some shit like that, which, you know, Mr. Perfect. Oh, he's an alpha when I need him to be, and then he's submissive when I want shit. But not enough, not too much, because then he'll be unattractive beta. So he's got to be alpha enough, but still, yeah. It's, like I said, it's some bullshit. But that's essentially it. I never been to jail. Okay. Well, actually, that might actually be a negative. I don't cheat. Like, I never been to jail, and I don't cheat. Those two might actually possibly be a negative, because we already know women like guys that are aggressive. Unfortunately, some of those younger, early bloomer guys, they don't learn their lessons. They get that. See, when guys get entitlement and they do that shit, that's actually what can tend to happen to them is they go to jail. They get out here, they start losing, and they don't know how to lose properly. Because the younger guys, the normal guys, you start off low, so you don't get much respect from the men nor women. So in a way, you have to learn how to develop. And how you develop, one of the ways you develop is your ability to take your losses and learn from them. That's why I talked about that men hate to lose thing. That's where that dynamic comes from. Because you start low and then you work your way high. And in order for you to do that, if every loss you encounter breaks you down, you're not gonna go far. Whereas the early bloomer guys, guess what? They start off, in a way, socially at least, when it comes to the females, winning. Sometimes they might even get a job because they're an attractive, fit guy. But that job is an entry-level job, and we already know that in order for you to really get there as a man, you got to be able to progress. But if you haven't developed yourself properly as a guy, you're literally solely, banking on swag and physical attractiveness. We already know how that happens. Damn, homie. In high school, you was the man, homie. What the fuck happened to you? So that's how those guys get there. So aside from those guys going to jail, the guys trying to make it seem like, oh, I never been to jail. They're trying to raise their value. That actually might be better, might better align with the one I said earlier for the women talking about their jobs and degrees. I think the never been to jail might align closer to that, because although yes, it could raise your value, women have no problem dating a dude from the pen. Like as long as he's capable, and we already see some prevalent, celebrities and whatnot, and even some entrepreneurs. Yeah, they've been to jail, but they still out here making bank. Yeah, he got aggressive one or two times too many, but yeah, she sees some positivity in that, especially if he's able to produce. That's the main thing. Can he produce? So you not being in jail, yeah, it should be a positive, but in reality, she's like, yeah, I mean, okay, you never been in jail, but nigga ain't producing, or nigga you lame. So it is what it is, fellas. It is what it is. I'm just saying, that's how it is. But we have to understand how all of these make up the reasons as to why people end up where they are. You have to acknowledge that. The cycles. There is a cycle. What they go through when they're young, how they develop, the choices they make. Ironically, a good deal of them have to make the same mistakes. But were they able to learn from the mistakes of others? That's actually where that young 20-year-old female with that 30, 40-year-old wisdom, the only way she gains that is from learning from other people around her, their mistakes as well. Is she willing to acknowledge, or is she going to be like this chick where she looks at them, she's like, yeah, that's not me, I'm different, and she goes right forth and does the exact same thing those women did, thinking that she's going to get a different outcome because she's not like them, or she tells herself she's not. She's like, oh, they must not have did something right, or they chose the wrong guy, and I'm just not going to do that. As I said, and then so the cycle continues. So I hope you liked what I had to talk about. Now there's a lot more to it, but I'm going on an hour, and I don't like to go for too long with these videos. So I usually can break them up in parts. But reasons. Where's background music from? Oh, I'm definitely like a copyright strike for this. But I don't give a shit. So please feel free to leave a comment, questions, whatever you got. Go in there. Now I will dive back on this subject. Specifically, like how that cycle differs with men and women, and how they're kind of like literally almost the reverse opposite. Some of the X factors, which one of the X factors for the ladies is the late bloomer, and one of the X factors for the men is the early bloomer, ironically. But remember how I said it's actually almost the inverse for the men and women. We start low, and work high, and they start high, and then, well, depending on their ability to develop as a woman, it either drops low very fast or very slow. This is up to you, ladies. It's the skills you learn, and guys, remember, if you don't develop yourself, you've got to develop yourself as a man. Unforced error coming up, envy. I'm going to be talking about envy, but in general, as a guy, don't make the unforced error. Like, shit ain't equal out here. The world's not fair. You should already know this. Go look up some of the terms and the words I put on here. Update your lexicon. Look out for the word of the day, WOTD, and the QOTD, which is the quote of the day. It will relate to this video. I think you guys will like it, actually. It's actually the quote that predates the one that people like to say a lot, which is all is fair in love and war. And I did talk about that earlier. But hey, y'all, thanks for watching. If you stayed this long, thank you a lot. Again, I'm definitely gonna get copyright strike for that music, but who cares? I love this song. Hope you do too. This has been the crossover. Late night, early morning, and as always, this is just information. Actually, I urge you to go do your research. And there was one thing that I did not mention because I have so much information. But if you look in the description, there's some videos with ladies. And it talks about how different society is today. And it's a modern example, most notably the situation in Afghanistan. So, if women want to see what it really could look like on the opposite end of the spectrum, where they're pretty much like, yeah, shut up, women. Yeah, you can go check that out and see what happened when the U.S. decided to pull out and acknowledge that, yeah, you need guys for guys like that. And if you're one of those people who thinks that it's because of men that this evil exists, you can consider Helen of Troy, as well as where were the women to stop them then? Remember, the world's not fair. Ladies, you can pick up a gun, you can fight the same as us. So where were the women to stand up to those guys? As a matter of fact, they were supposed to be an Afghan army. What happened to them? Why did they fold so quickly? Well, when you disrespect your men to the extent where they don't really want to be willing to sacrifice themselves for you, when there's a situation where they have to fight or die, and then they consider all of the possibilities, even if we win, you're telling me we're still going to have to deal with this bullshit of being disrespected because we're average guys? So, yeah, see, that's what you have to consider. Guys have to be willing to sacrifice themselves. And those soldiers, when the Taliban came, when America pulled out, we trained them, and they were not willing to sacrifice themselves. I wonder why. But as always, you can check those videos out in the description. This is just information. And you know what I say, do with that.
Don't let me down, man. If you let me down, I don't know what I'd do.
Till next time.
お前はもう死んでいる。